YouTube, what's the deal?
It's time to get real with Jahira. It's time to get real with Jahira.
YouTube, what's the deal?
What's the deal? One love.
YouTube, what's the deal? It's your girl Jahira, and I am back. Hey everybody. I have to dial it down to a serious note, and there's something that's necessary for me to talk about, however difficult it's going to be for me. The title of this video is Losing My Dignity. There is a very well-known song for people who are familiar with the Broadway musical / movie Rent called Will I Lose My Dignity? And the name Jahira actually translates to dignity. I always said that, if I lose everything else in this world, at least I'll have my dignity. Dignity is a very important thing, especially when you're a person of a certain age, a certain mentality, and you're cognizant of the kind of legacy that you'd like to leave. We all want to retain our dignity. I think that's a very basic human desire. We all deserve to be able to keep it. This past weekend, I had to say goodbye to someone whom I knew, and someone who I loved, and someone who I really appreciated. And her name was Lorena. Lorena passed away early Saturday morning in a fire. And Lorena was a bit of an amalgamation, actually. She was dynamic, yet she was humble. She could step into a diva mentality, yet she was very sincere. She was the life of the party, and yet rather meek, rather mild-mannered. And all of those things added up to be her. And her loss at 25 years old has hit our community very hard because Lorena happened to be a woman of trans experience. That in and of itself, the loss of somebody so incredible, should be tragic enough. But unfortunately, it gets so much worse. The handling of this beautiful young woman's death by the media is the equivalent to spitting on someone's grave. Has been the equivalent. The New York Times posted an article about the fire and Lorena's ensuing passing, or subsequent passing, I should say, and referred to Lorena, and I'm going to include the link to this article below, as curvaceous. Curvaceous, as in curvy. That she drew admiring glances in her gritty Brooklyn neighborhood. That she was, and this is a direct quote, people, that she was known to invite men for visits to her apartment. They then went on to say that she was called Lorena. And I realize that there are some of you who may be wondering where I'm going with this, but I just want you to take a second and think. Lorena's name was Lorena. Period. Her name was Lorena. She was known to invite men into her apartment for visits. Well, I don't know of many 25-year-old women who live in their own place in New York City who haven't invited the occasional man into her apartment. The problem is that the New York Times and other media outlets, don't get me wrong, but I'm referring specifically to the Times because the New York Times has typically been looked at as a real authority in the news and one of the litmus tests by which all other news outlets are judged. is that the two men who contributed to this one particular article, their names are Al Baker and Nate Schweber, placed Lorena's gender above Lorena's person. Because had this been a biological female, nobody would have referred to her as curvaceous. I don't recall anywhere in the news ever seeing, such and such McGinnis, passed away recently and she was a skinny woman. I mean, do you see where I'm going with this? It goes on, and this is the part where I might get very upset, so please forgive me in advance. They were discussing the items, the debris found around her apartment amongst the rubble as a result of the fire. And they proceeded to list things like wigs, things like women's shoes, things like a feather boa, handbags, hairspray, makeup. I am going to pause this video for a second, and I'm going to show you a picture of Lorena so that you understand who this young lady was and the way that she presented herself to the world. Hold on one second. So that was Lorena, or La Reina, as she was known in some circles. All of my Spanish-speaking subtastics will understand the reference. But I ask you, after looking at those pictures and seeing Lorena for yourself, would it make sense for her to have on any other shoes but women's? This is where the problem begins and deepens. When a person's gender is placed on a level of higher importance than the totality of who she is, the actuality of who she is. And this is sort of where my piece in the video comes in, because you can't look at a situation like this without considering your own mortality. And y'all know what's coming. And the problem that I and those who are like me face is the hypothesis or the hypothetical scenario that when my life comes to an end, which it will anything I have done, any accomplishments I may have to my name, any marginal level or quantifiable level of success, the fact that I've, spoken of my experience as a woman of trans experience everywhere from national platforms in Chicago to Harvard University, will the fact that I have a pretty masterful knowledge of a number of languages, will the fact that I have done all within my ability to help people and to be a guiding force, will the fact that I had a YouTube channel, will anything that I have done be as important as the fact that I was not born biologically female? As far as, will anything be as newsworthy as that one aspect, one, I would venture to say, marginal aspect of my journey? We've talked about this before, and I don't mind revisiting it. My transition, and the reason why I cannot make every single video trans-related, because my transition is of such little consequence in the grand scheme of all that comprises me. I know that for the most part, when you look at me, you don't see Jahira, trans individual. You're just talking to a chick who's talking to you, and we have this whole thing going. We get our coffee and our cigarettes if you smoke them, and we chat. You know what I mean? It's not some cataclysmic event. Lorena was so much more than this one aspect of her being. You know what I mean? She was an actualized woman. Transitioning, I mean, if we take it all the way down to like gender identity disorder, which is, clinically, DSM-4 classified what this thing is called, the only known treatment for this disorder is transitioning. So she was born with a disorder, she's treated the disorder, and now the disorder is a moot point. Do you understand? I'm begging you to get where I'm coming from here. This was a woman, point blank period. You've seen the pictures for yourself now. And somebody said, one of the neighbors or something like that said, oh, for a guy, he sure looked good. Where do you see a guy in those pictures? Where? Please point it out. And it's so easy to make those kind of erroneous statements after a person is gone and unable to defend themselves. But he never would have said that to her face, ever. Ever, ever, ever. Just as nobody would say it to my face. It's just not the kind of thing you say. But once you feel like you're safe enough, you word vomit that kind of vile, vitriolic bullshit out of your... Please forgive me, but I mean, it's highly frustrating because I was born with a problem. I was born with a problem that left me in abject misery for the first 16 years of my life. And once I addressed that problem, I was able to get beyond it. But it seems as though the world can't get beyond it. You know what I mean? Did we judge George W. Bush for his wild, college, drunken, cocaine-fueled years? I mean, if we had kept him in that place, we probably wouldn't have elected him for 8 years. You know what I mean? We've got to be able to move beyond the past and see a person for who they are, because Lorena was so much more. I am so much more. My sisters and my daughters are so much more. And until the rest of society catches up to my mindset, this is where we're going to be. And as easily as it's happening to the trans community now, believe me, it will spill on, you know what I mean, to other so-called minority groups. It will spill on to those who are marginalized and disenfranchised. It will spill on unless we take a stand, a valid stand. There will be 2 links below. One, of course, to the original article, and the one below that will be to a response to the article from GLAAD, the Gay and Lesbian Alliance Against Defamation. And I encourage you to read them both and to comment on them if you so choose. And just be aware. Just be very, very aware. Because my fear is that nothing I will have done since what happened to me is going to matter. And I can't tell you how discouraging that is for somebody who wants so much more. Lorena deserved so much more than to have the footnote of her life be a commentary on her physicality. So much more than that. And now I pray with the addition of this video and with some eulogies that have been posted up. I'll link you to one of them. My amazingly gorgeous and talented son, Daniel, wrote this beautiful eulogy on his Tumblr, and I encourage you to read that as well. But I want more. I want more. And I want more for Lorena. So hopefully this will be our way of righting such a wrong. Rest in peace, Lorena Escalera. I love you. Descanse en paz. And thank y'all for listening. One love.